Well, hello, that's me again. Today is Saturday, April 13th. Well, it's 13th, at least not Friday. So, and let's not procrastinate and let's get into the neck of the woods, so to speak. And let's start with the fact of, well, it's dawning on many people that it's over in Ukraine. We will yet to see what's going to be the Iran's response to the atrocity Israel committed against the diplomatic mission in Lebanon and in Syria, pardon me. And if you want to really have some ideas, go to Larry Johnson's wonderful blog, Sonar 21. He made the kind of, summary there about what we may expect, and many people are panicking, and rightly so, but we'll see. Iranians are rational people, actually, and they know that the revenge is the dish best served cold. But let's go to our goats, so to speak, in terms of Russia-NATO relations, quote unquote, and see for ourselves all those wonderful signs of basically acceptance. And one of those acceptance issues, so to speak, in the Kubler-Ross model, the stage of acceptance, which is the final stage of the grief model, is the fact that people now begin to yeah, you know what, it's not even bargaining. They try to separate United States and NATO, and it's very unprofessional and very incompetent operational and strategic planners. And just to give you example, here is the former deputy secretary for whatever he is, and his name is Stephen Bryan, and he writes about 2 days ago in his blog. He's as I already stated, former bureaucrat from Pentagon, and he writes, will NATO fight, because he basically the whole piece on this Substack or whatever the hell the name of this thing is that because he was a middle-level bureaucrat in Pentagon, he continues to believe that if NATO will come together and will start fighting Russia has no choice but to surrender, and basically that what was happening in Ukraine, it's not really NATO, it's all Ukrainians. Well, I have news for this guy, and evidently he has no clue what he's talking about, and I will explain in a minute why. That actually this was all planned at Ramstein, and it was planned in Washington with some input from Chihuahuas from London. And unlike London, which actually does have the general staff, but they don't have troops to command with them, United States doesn't have general staff. They have the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they have the chairman, and none of those Joint Chiefs of Staff have any direct relations in the command and control of the troops, as well as designing the strategies and procurement policies. Well, in Russia, General Staff does exactly opposite. It has full control of Russian military, and it really commands and control, and it plans. So it is the fundamental difference which evidently former U.S. bureaucrats cannot, grasp. And here is Mr. Stephen Bryan, who says that, of course, it was Ukraine which really screwed it up. We were really good, and, we know how to fight. Of course, we don't, but here it is. Look at his background. My goodness, the guy has the Rutgers University Political Science. He has the Masters of International Politics. He has postdoctoral advanced statistical analysis, and he has PhD in international affairs. In other words, the guy has no clue what he is talking about. He obtained his education actually in the times of what was the, let me put it this way, before the real revolution in military affairs, and technologically he is an nincompoop. He doesn't understand really, for all his service in Pentagon, what modern battlefield is and how it is formed, how it is shaped. He also doesn't understand how the military planning and operational planning is conducted. That is why he begins to actually, you know what, trying to wash away all those culpability from the United States, from Pentagon, people who actually planned this catastrophe. And if you think that, oh my gosh, he might have the case, no, he doesn't. You can take a look at Vietnam, you can take a look at Afghanistan, where the Pentagon was lying for decades that it's about to win while it was losing the war and had no control of Afghanistan whatsoever. You can take a look at Iraq, and we can go on and on and on. So, and when I say that basically they are not competent people, that's what I mean. There is something there which, I mean, there's in clockwork, or maybe something in the water, in those fountains in Pentagon, that doesn't allow those people to come up with the proper idea about how to fight the war, because they never fought one. They never fought in the modern times serious combined arms war of scale. The only person who continues to exhibit the signs of the competence and understanding of this is Mr. Cavoli. It's the Supreme Commander of the European troops of NATO. So that's about it. The rest of it, the parading of this, you know, people from Pentagon, former and present, you have to scratch your head, because it's like, dudes, you literally lacking basic understanding of strategy, and not to be, you know what, just throwing things around in, you know, shaking the air. Here we have, here's the guy, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he says that given attacks to Ukraine no longer is risky, says Joint Chiefs Chairman, the United States is becoming more comfortable giving Ukraine the long-sought weapons. I have news for chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And you know what, I will explain why General Charles Brown is not stupid man by any means. You know, he has a very impressive, serious scientific background. He also graduated Embry-Riddle in Florida. He has master's degree in aeronautical engineering, and he's a former fighter pilot. But evidently, going through the candidate officer school, actually I believe he went through ROTC, it somehow kills it. It cuts off this whole understanding of what modern warfare is. And he obviously misses the point that ATACMS are already in Ukraine, including the longer range version, which is 300 kilometers. It changes absolutely nothing. And that's why I don't know why he comes up with this basically consideration. And hear what he says, you know, it's really ridiculous. Brown didn't officially confirm or deny the reporting either, but he did say that Russia's muted response to a series of recent Ukrainian drone attacks well inside of Russian territory have allowed the Pentagon to adjust its analysis on the risk of sending ATACMS. It's a ridiculous statement, because ATACMS are already there. Most of them have been intercepted by Russian air defense. I don't know what they're talking about. And evidently they don't. And here he's response. I don't know if the Russians can generate a major offensive. I mean, if you look at what happens over the course of the past year, the Russians have actually thrown a lot of capability and personnel and weapon systems and vehicles to gain what they have gained. And the way I would say, it's almost a meat grinder. Well, I mean, this is a ridiculous statement, absolutely, because as I already stated, we can insist, actually, we have to really stress this statement. Those people do not understand what strategy is. They do not understand what modern warfare is. They do not understand what strategic defense is, because United States never fought anything like this. And so when you look at these statements, which are actually, if you go, so to speak, in the neck of the woods, they are contradictory, self-contradictory. And well, obviously Russian forces today took another number of villages and continue to move westward, but there is a reason why we have to consider that you know, something is wrong with the whole damn thing with the military in the United States, is the fact that Mr. Brown, I mean, he is a fighter pilot. He evidently a good fighter pilot. He commanded air wings in Italy, so he is a real deal in many respects. But Obviously, as was the case when, I don't remember the name of the general who was once early 2000 the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he was from the Special Forces and Special Operations. Okay, they put this guy in charge and he commands those special operations because now it's irregular warfare, counterinsurgency, and yeah, whatever. So we know how it all ended. So now we have the guy who is the airman. He doesn't know what combined arms warfare is. He knows how to use, for example, U.S. Air Force against the, enemies with the air defense of the circa of American Civil War in 19th century, 1861, 1865. So, but that's about it. They don't understand what the whole thing is, how it works, and how many factors come into this. And now you have obviously the guy who is the air general, and that tells you basically the plans of the United States Armed Forces, because they want to emphasize now what is completely debunked and unworkable idea of the air-land battle, which based as always, there is no secret, there is no some classified document which you can go and read that's something. No, not what it is being shown to us. It is the same old, same old. Gain the air superiority. The problem is U.S. Air Force cannot gain air superiority against the peer, let alone the peer with the air defense and the air force such as Russia. And they begin to kind of scratch their head. What do? Oh, let's put the guy who commands air, who understands, they think they understand, air operations. And there we go. And now he talks about something which is already there. Russians like, okay, yeah, sure. And muted response precisely because Russians do not respond to it because it is already there. Most of it has been shut down with official effectiveness of Russian air defense of 95%. This is beyond comprehension of any general or any fighter pilot in Pentagon or elsewhere in NATO. They cannot even wrap their brains around it, because these are numbers which are absolutely shocking. And so that's just the part of it. Now we have also the situation with the mathematics. And, the math is, how to put it politely, very simple. So simple that, how to put it, we have New York Times. Whatever the Kramer, Holder, Loring, Letterby write about it 2 days ago, that can Ukraine find new soldiers without decimating a whole generation? They write this article, and I can tell you, no, they cannot. And even New York Times suddenly, in the feed of the, telling the truth, talks about how the waves of Ukrainian men, young men, try to escape Ukraine, including, trying to negotiate the treacherous waters of rivers which separate Ukraine from other countries, and guess what? You have their border guards who shoot them. So, that's a wonderful country, really. But we have now, obviously, Mr. J.D. Vance, the junior senator from Ohio, Republican, one of those people who have brains left, and here it is. Yesterday he penned the piece for New York Times, which is called "The Math on Ukraine Doesn't Add Up." Yes, we know it doesn't add up, and Russians are really good at math, especially Russian general stuff. And J.D. Vance elaborates. He elaborates that President Biden wants the world to believe that the biggest obstacle facing Ukraine is Republicans and our lack of commitment to the global community. This is wrong. Ukraine's challenge is not GOP, it's math. Well, correct. That's what I'm talking for years now. Ukraine needs more soldiers than it can field, even with draconian conscription policies. And it needs more material than the United States can provide. This really must inform any future Ukraine policy, from further congressional aid to the diplomatic course set by the president. We have to correct here. United States doesn't have diplomacy as a functional statecraft. It doesn't exist. Neither United States has any real diplomats who can communicate on the appropriate level. And so J.D. Vance continues. So, and he says, just this week, the top American military commander in Europe, Mr. Kaboli, argued that absent further security assistance, Russia could soon have a 10-to-1 artillery advantage over Ukraine. What didn't gather as many headlines is that Russia's current advantage is at least 5-to-1, even after all the money we have poured into the conflict. Neither of these ratios plausibly lead to Ukrainian victory. Hey, J.D. Vance is actually a lawyer. You can actually see the movie about himself based on his book with Amy Adams, their wonderful movie. And actually he can count, evidently. Evidently not everybody are mathematically illiterate. Well, guess what? And he talks about that we can and should rebuild our industrial base without shipping its product to a foreign conflict. I agree. United States can if it wants to. The problem is it doesn't have institutions and tools inside the United States, which are set up such a way as to rebuild something at least. United States will never be able to fight the real continental war on its own. This is my thesis, which I defend for the last 10 plus years, and my latest book is precisely about it. It simply is not there. But United States certainly can rebuild to a degree its industrial base, which will allow it to hold, so to speak, in reserve the appropriate navy, which obviously not the navy that United States has now, but at least the navy which will be able theoretically defend, if somebody decides to do this, I don't know why, but to defend American shores. In terms of the ground forces, United States record is dismal, with the exception of the World War II, where the United States was one of the major parts. Actually, you could be surprised, United Kingdom, Great Britain, Empire provided the bulk of the forces for the Allies, and it was the part of the larger coalition, of which, of course, Soviet Union took the brunt of fighting the best of the best and vast majority of the Wehrmacht and Axis forces in Europe. That's about it. After that, not very good performance, to put it mildly. And this is not just it. So we have suddenly the fact that that's mathematics. You see, this is basic Lanchester model, and it shows you, this is its area of fire. Obviously, there are all kinds of models. As you can see yourself, if you consider that Russians, x0 is 30, while y0 is 60, twice more, as was the case from the start of the special military operation. But you have a very serious advantage on those other coefficients, including the firepower. You can see yourself the dynamics of the losses. And you can see yourself that Y, which is, you can consider Ukrainian forces, going down like precipitously, while Russian forces, at some point of time, even flatten out. This is basic Lanchester, Osipov Lanchester model. I don't know why they continue to ignore the guy who actually started it all, Mr. Osipov, man, because he's Russian, obviously. Those, subhuman Russians cannot be mentioned. It's all about Lanchester. But reality is it was Osipov's article which actually started it all in 1915, and but as you can see yourself that this is how the relations between losses in an attrition model works, and well, people begin to understand that now. Actually, if that hasn't been enough to have the overwhelming technological superiority of Russians over whatever Ukraine has left, we also have these dynamics of the losses. And of course, as I already mentioned, you remember the Chinese media, serious media, not some kind of, but we're talking about the probably originating in the political and military top of China. They assess Ukrainian losses upward of 2 million people. So this is horrifying. And again, this is not the war United States can fight. So, and if we can take a look further in what we're talking about, it's the fact that, well, after this, I don't know, listen, this already is making the rounds, and this is the guy, he is commander of one of the American destroyers, and he's shooting whatever the name of AR-15, AR-15 or whatever the hell this M16 derivative is, yeah, I like how everybody shows that the guy actually yeah, he's not really shooting something. He is looking in the other side, or I mean, opposite side of the optical sight. And that pretty much tells you everything about. It's like it's a symbol. It's a really distillation of the whole situation with the real military art. And as we already know, that Houthis evidently are not going to surrender. You cannot make those people surrender. And we have now the French frigate. Failed mission against Houthis. French frigate announces withdrawal from the Red Sea. We didn't expect that level of threat, they say. There was an unrestrained violence that was quite surprising and very significant. Yemenis do not hesitate to use sea drones to detonate merchant ships or fire ballistic missiles at ships. Henri said in exclusive interview with the French daily Le Figaro published 2 days ago. Yes, this is what happens, this is war. You have to have the ammunition, you have to have stocks, and when you suddenly run out of it, your French frigate, the Frame design, which by the way will be in the foundation of the next US Navy frigate, yeah, it simply ran out of missiles and ammunition. So guess what? This is war, my friends, modern one, 2024. This is not some kind of BS from 1950s where you can actually shoot down one, maybe two cruise missiles, which are probably very low, not very low flying and very slow. This is very different. And again, Houthis have they shooting at all those ships. Actually, they're cruise missiles, and they're shipping cruise missiles. They are ancient. They are based on the good old Russian P-15s from 1950, but they still fly. They still need to shoot them down, expand those hugely expensive missiles, and there you go. As the result, their mission is a complete failure because those ships and this operational formation is basically pushed into the ocean because they cannot really reach the shore of Yemen. Well, they can fly their aircraft from the aircraft carriers, which will bomb there. That's what they do, but aircraft carrier has to stay away for very far towards the ocean. And yeah, can you imagine if Houthis will get somehow some kind of modern air defense systems? God forbid, right? So this is the situation which we have to keep in mind. And as the result of all that, in the dynamic, so to speak, if that hasn't been enough, and I'm talking about the United States and NATO losing technologically the arms race, we have Mr. Nebenzia, which is of course not reported in the Western media, mainstream media, and Mr. Nebenzia being the permanent representative of Russia in the United Nations, he stated that West needs to prepare for the unconditional surrender of Ukraine. The attempts of the head of the Kiev regime, Zelensky, to promote his formula and convince summits in support of Kiev regime are only bewildering. We are talking about this gathering of people who decide nothing in Switzerland. Very soon the only topic for international meetings on Ukraine will be the unconditional surrender of the Kiev regime. I advise you, all of you, to prepare for this in advance. And how to put it politely, Russia is in the mode of what you would recall from the Fifth Element, wonderful movie, one of the greatest movies ever, actually, when the guys, those space forces or space forces shoot at this ball, this evil thing, and the more they shoot at it, the bigger it becomes, until of course it consumes the fleet which tries to stop it towards the Earth. This is exactly the same, this is analogy which works perfectly. And the reason it works perfectly, just to demonstrate to you, there are some consequences which obviously those people in Washington and elsewhere, they didn't calculate. They didn't calculate this, for example, like Russia tests, well, it doesn't test top secret nuclear capable missile, it tests obviously either Yars or some Topol, but the question is that they were not testing a test launch of some missile, which is, of course, part of the issue, always. It is the fact what was this missile was carrying. And there are all reasons to believe that there are some new iterations of the hypersonic gliding bodies, and these are very bad news for the West, because obviously, as you can quote me, just said that Martyanov said it. So, and I will be able to defend this point of view that, as I already stated, in terms of the nuclear weapons and in terms of their delivery systems, United States lost it by couple generations to Russia, not one, probably couple. And this is another, so to speak, weight on the scale which is changing dramatically in favor of BRICS, and especially this duet, China and Russia, which, of course, as last video I was trying to explain to you, all those primarily ignorant, badly educated, and absolutely uncultured people from either a liberal opposition in Russia or United States continue to, smear with this thing that Russia is totally dependent on China. Well, let me give you some example why she is really not. One of them is this. First, now American Airlines complain that Chinese have the, rivals artificial cost advantage because, yeah, China and Russia are friends. And yes, Chinese airlines fly through Russian airspace. American Airlines, however, and other Western airlines do not, because Russia closed it for them. And now they complain, and they call it anti-competitive policies and routing of flights through Russian airspace. And why not? Russia and China are in a very good relations. They are essentially friends. Culturally, they are actually enjoying the relations. So, anti-groups for the airlines and their employee unions urged the Biden administration this week to halt approval of additional flights to the U.S. from China. Sure, let them shoot them in their own foot. I mean, this is what happens. This is unintended consequences. And they continue that if the growth of the Chinese aviation market is allowed to continue unchecked and without concern for equality of access in the market, flights will continue to be relinquished to Chinese carriers at the expense of U.S. workers and businesses. Well, you know what? Russia survived it. Russians are not allowed to fly anywhere except for the Asia and within Russia. Well, Russia is doing okay. And here comes another basically demolition of this BS, which is promoted by primarily people with the humanities degrees in United States who do not understand what modern technology is. The Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade, Vasily Shpak, in an interview with the CNews, there has never been such a growth rate in our electronics industry. He is talking about electronics industry in Russia. And all those, microchips, which of course Russians extract from their Ukrainian and imported washing machines and dishwashers. But look what Mr. Shpak says. And first, finally, he says what I've been talking about, this BS of the artificial intelligence. It is not AI. It is all crap to sell to all those people who buy iPhones and drink iCoffees. And he stated, I have recently stopped liking the concept of artificial intelligence. Firstly, the quotation marks, which has always been there, have disappeared, which is very strange. Second, as we've known for a long time, neural works, this is mathematics, and this is not the creation of something new, but a way of going through a huge number of already existing options, a kind of compilation. So at the current level of development, I don't think that in the next 2, 3, or 5 years, we'll have something that will say artificial intelligence and neural networks have replaced the creator for us. Unlikely. And so he's talking about obviously microelectronics, and it's very important, but far from the only key to the possessing the entire range of electronic technologies: electrical engineering, passive components, optoelectronics, photonics, although indeed you can do without microelectronics. And I can tell you, in a couple of things he already mentioned in this list, Russia is leading the world, or is in the same league with the rest of the world, especially photonics. Now, we have these things. And he's talking about if the Soviet Union had the full stack of abilities. Yes, we had a lot of our own. And the Americans were absolutely right when they say in Electronics magazine that in 1979 we had parity. In microelectronics there may not have been parity, but the lag was no more than one generation. That's for sure. This is where the revolution in military affairs was born in Soviet Union. I was the part of it. That is why, for example, explaining to some bureaucrat what was happening, they will not even comprehend what I will be telling them. And even now, in a number of areas such as vacuum technology, we are definitely among the leaders. There is no doubt about it. So he talks about the development of microelectronics, which is developing really fast in Russia, and he makes statements of like this. We also need a market. He's talking about the market. The technologies and ability to develop technologies is there. It always was there. But he's talking about we also need a market. Fortunately, the country's population is growing. There are more than 140 million of us. If you take with Belarus now, Belarus, it's 160 plus. And we are growing with new regions. But this is still not enough. So Russia needs the market of 450 million people to push through with those advanced technologies. But he's talking about Uzbekistan, Iran will definitely be in our zone. And he's talking about Saudi Arabia, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, and altogether this is about 450 million people. So it is clear to us who to work with this. And then he drops this bomb for all those, BSs from all those Carnegies or Foreign Affairs magazines and Council for Foreign Relations. Surprisingly, the export of electronics from Russia is quite serious. Most of all, we export it to the People's Republic of China. And he explains to why Russians have the best weapons in the world. Our horizon is now 28 nanometers. He has Russia develops equipment, and actually some of them exist for, already exist for 14 nanometers. And he's talking about a little bit more difficult route, but you have to understand, Russia completely supplies itself with 90 and 60 nanometers, which are at the core of the military tech. And that's why those idiots, they do not understand this. Russia has it. Russia also has own lithography, and within it already has some of it in serious production. Wait a couple of years, that will be interesting. And this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys, for this weekend, to have food for thought. And as always, I want to express my profound gratitude to my wonderful patrons, guys. I know who you are. I cannot simply physically respond to every of you. Bones, happy birthday to you today. So, and as always, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and who can afford, support me on Patreon or buy me and coffee and too. And that will be it for today. Have a nice weekend, guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.